Foolio's killers just got convicted of first-degree murder. And before this trial was over, the name Yoon Jin-ace came up so many times in that courtroom that you got to start asking yourself, why is a man who was never charged looking more guilty by the day? And here's the thing, somebody already came out and told us exactly what happened. A masked man went on the internet and flat out said Yoon Jin-ace put up $10,000 and told him to slide on Foolio. Ace had done put that 10K up, told me to slide, told me to smack Fool. And now inside a Tampa courtroom, the police are confirming things that line up with every word of that video. Young Jin-ace was Foolio's biggest op. Everybody knew it. The music knew it. The streets knew it. And apparently law enforcement has known it for years. So stick with me because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how deep this thing goes. The murder, the arrest, the trial, what was said in court, and why young Ace keeps coming up every single time somebody tries to explain why Foolio is dead. Let's get into it. To understand why Julio Foolio ended up dead in a Tampa hotel parking lot on his 26th birthday, you got to go all the way back to Jacksonville, Florida, one of the most overlooked but most dangerous cities in the country when it comes to rap beef that spills into real life. Foolio, born Charles Andrew Jones II on June 21st, 1998, grew up in the Monreef neighborhood of Jacksonville. His pops, Charles Jones Sr., was murdered in a 2011 shooting when Foolio was just 13 years old. So, right out the gate, this kid was being raised in the kind of environment that leaves marks on you. He grew up affiliated with a street gang called 6 Block, part of the larger KTA crew, which stands to kill them all. That name alone tells you everything about the world Foolio was navigating. He started rapping around 2017, and early on his music was raw street-level stuff, dark subject matter, stories about survival, hood life. Vulture magazine described his 2019 mixtape, Never Wanted Fame, as preoccupied with death and jail visits, ailing family members, and creeping paranoia. That wasn't just an aesthetic. That was his actual reality. But Foolio wasn't just a rapper. He was one of the highest-profile figures on his side of a very deadly Jacksonville gang war. And the man on the other side of that war, the one who would become his biggest OP, was Yoon Jin-ace, real name K. Bullard. To understand how deep this beef ran, you got to understand how it started. In 2017, Foolio's 18-year-old cousin, Zion Malik Brown, was shot and killed inside his own home in Jacksonville. That's where this whole war is believed to have started. That death lit a fuse. The following year, in 2018, young Jin-ace was shot in what investigators believe was a retaliatory attack. But Ace didn't just get shot. His brother and 2 of his close friends were killed in that same incident. Ace survived, but he lost 3 people he was close to in one night. That kind of trauma changes a man. And what made it worse, or at least what made everything more public and more personal, was that Foolio started posting disrespectful content about the victims on social media. He was taunting Ace online about the people he just lost. In the streets, that's one of the worst things you can do. So now you've got 2 sides of Jacksonville that have lost people on both ends. 2 crews, 6 Block and KTA on Foolio's side, ATK and 12,000 on AC's side with real bodies, real grief, and real hatred built up over years of back-and-forth violence. Then in 2021, the beef went national. Jin-ace dropped Who I Smoke, a diss track that named and disrespected Foolio's fallen friends. The song went viral and Foolio responded with When I See You, a record that sampled actual news coverage of Ace's brother getting killed. It was one of the coldest disses in recent rap history. By that point, this wasn't just a local Jacksonville beef anymore. The whole country was watching. But behind the music, people were dying. Detectives testified in court that between 2018 and 2024, this gang war produced killing after killing. It wasn't just rap beef. It was an active war with casualties on both sides. And through all of it, law enforcement was watching. They knew exactly who the players were. They knew Foolio was one of the top figures on his side. And they knew young Jin-ace was a top figure on the other side. Now, let's talk about June 23rd, 2024, Foolio's 26th birthday. Foolio had traveled to Tampa from Jacksonville to celebrate. He was out here living life, doing what 26-year-olds do on their birthday. But here's where the situation gets critical and where the planning that went into his murder becomes clear. Starting on June 14, 2024, 9 days before his death, Foolio had been posting flyers on Instagram promoting his Tampa birthday celebration. He was basically advertising his location and his schedule to the world. 1 million followers, all looking at exactly where he was going to be. Now, for most people, posting about your birthday is harmless. But Foolio wasn't most people. And according to prosecutors, the people who wanted him dead were watching those posts very closely. From the moment those flyers went up, a coordinated mission was already being put together. On the night of June 22nd, the day before his murder, 5 people made the drive from Jacksonville to Tampa together. Those 5 were Isaiah Chance, Shaw Gathite, cousins Rashad Murphy and Dave Murphy, and Chance's girlfriend, Alicia Andrews. They weren't coming down for a good time. They were coming with rifles, a modified fully automatic, pistol, and a plan. When they got to Tampa, Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance were assigned to track Foolio's movements in a silver Chevrolet Cruze. They followed him from club to club throughout the night, relaying his location back to the shooters in real time. The whole setup was military-level coordination. Here's where it gets even more tragic. Foolio's party had originally been at an Airbnb, but the police kicked him out because there were too many people. So Foolio posted on his Instagram, again, telling people he was moving the party to a new location near the University of South Florida. He was unknowingly helping his killers track him in real time. The 5 suspects followed him to a cluster of hotels on Kinley Drive. Foolio was sitting in the passenger seat of a black Dodge Charger trying to check into the Home 2 suites when the shooting started. 3 masked gunmen opened fire. Surveillance footage shows them positioned in the parking lot, and they unleashed a barrage. Estimates suggest up to 40 rounds were fired. The bullets tore through the windshield of the Charger and hit Foolio multiple times. A medical examiner later testified that a fatal gunshot wound passed directly through his heart, lungs, and aorta. He was pronounced dead at the scene. 3 other people in his crew were wounded but survived. The shooters fled in a black Chevrolet Impala. They had actually modified their rifles so that no shell casings would be left behind at the scene, which tells you this wasn't a spontaneous hit. This was planned down to the last detail. Foolio was gone. He hadn't even made it past his birthday. And then just hours later, Young Ace dropped a new diss track called Do It on the day of Foolio's murder. The timing alone sent shockwaves through the internet. Now, here's where the situation really gets wild. Before the police had even made a single arrest, somebody else was already talking. About 2 weeks after Foolio's murder, a video went viral online. A masked man, face covered, voice not fully disguised, got on camera and started speaking. And what he said was jaw-dropping. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "On everything I love, on the dead homies, I put it on my soul. I'm the one that got Foolio that night when he got dropped at his birthday celebration." He didn't show his face. He wasn't identifying himself to law enforcement, but he wanted the streets to know. And then he went further. He explained exactly why it happened and who was behind it. And he said, "There was money on his head. I rock with Ace and them boys. ATK, I be in Jacksonville heavy. If you know, you know. I handled that because Ace had that money on his head. Ace had them put that 10K up. Told me to slide. Told me to smack Foolio cause he got tired of that running his mouth playing all the time. $10,000, a bounty put up by Yoonjin Ace." That's what this masked man was claiming on video for the entire internet to see. He then said, "A lot of people feel that it was on some gang. Shit ain't even really all that. Ace put that bread up and whoever wanted to take it took it. So I took that." And he expressed zero remorse. Zero. Now, is this video proof? Legally, no. An anonymous man on the internet claiming something does not equal conviction, and investigators would later catch the actual people responsible. But that video set the tone for everything that followed, because the name Yoonjin Ace was now attached to this murder in the public eye and law enforcement was paying attention. When Yoonjin Ace was finally asked about it, he went on Instagram Live and denied involvement. He said, and again paraphrasing, that he didn't condone what happened. He even claimed he and Foolio had actually been on speaking terms before his death, saying he had advised his longtime enemy to stay off the streets and lay low. He said it was sad, but the streets weren't buying it. And based on what came out in court, law enforcement wasn't fully convinced either. Let's talk about how the suspects got caught because the police work on this case was thorough. The first 3 arrests came on July 29, 2024, just over a month after Foolio was killed. Tampa Police Department held a press conference to announce that Isaiah Chance, Alicia Andrews, and Sean Gathright had all been taken into custody in Jacksonville. All 3 were charged with first-degree murder. Then on July 30th, Rashad Murphy was arrested. He was located at a hotel, and when officers approached with guns drawn, he ran. Officers deployed a taser twice. The second one connected and brought him down. When detectives got into his phone and his social media, they found post after post that they interpreted as celebrating Foolio's death. One of the posts showed Tom Brady and Bill Belichick celebrating after a Super Bowl. Another one just read, "Hate me kindly, real cold." The 5th and final suspect, Dave Murphy, managed to stay on the run for over 6 months. He was finally arrested on January 6, 2025 at an apartment complex on Jacksonville's west side. The state immediately announced they would be seeking the death penalty against him. Just like the other 3 male defendants, the investigation involved an insane amount of evidence. Detectives used license plate readers that tracked the suspect vehicles, the silver Chevy Cruze, and the black Chevy Impala traveling in a convoy from Jacksonville to Tampa. They pulled surveillance footage from USF poll cameras, the hotel itself, and even Tesla dashcam footage from nearby vehicles that captured the convoy doing reconnaissance before the shooting. Cell tower data placed all the suspects at the scene, and the ballistics matched. The same brand of bullets used to kill Foolio matched shell casings from a 2022 unrelated homicide and a 2023 attempted murder on Foolio that Gathright had also been connected to. They also found firearms, ammunition, magazines, and tactical gear during a search warrant at a residence connected to the suspects. All of it was documented and collected. And then there was the interrogation footage of Dave Murphy. After his arrest, surveillance cameras inside the interview room caught him when he thought no one was watching, acting out a shooting motion like he was reliving it. That footage was later played for the jury. These were not people who were careful, and law enforcement had been watching Jacksonville long enough to know exactly where to look. Now, here's where everything gets real serious and real, relevant to what this video is about. Because from the moment these court proceedings started, one name kept coming up that nobody on the defendant list, young Gene Ace. Let's start with the very first major hearing. On January 16, 2025, Devon Murphy had his bond hearing in Hillsborough County. It lasted 5 hours. And throughout those 5 hours, detectives from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the Tampa Police Department laid out in detail the gang war that led to Foolio's death. And at the center of it all was Yunjin Ace. JSO Gang Unit Detectives Richard Neer and Chris Drabek, as well as TPD Detective Juan Ramos, all testified that Young Jin Ace, real name Keona Bullard, is believed to be at the helm of ATK. One officer testified that ATK is believed to stand for AC's top killers, though he noted that hadn't been officially proven in a court of law. They testified that Foolio was a high-profile leader on one side of this war and that Young Yin Ace was his direct equivalent on the other side. Same level of influence, same level of reach. 2 generals in opposing armies. Detectives testified that Devon Murphy was an associate of the Gang 12,000, which is directly affiliated with ATK, meaning the people who killed Foolio were soldiers in Union A's broader network. Rashad Murphy's connection to the war got personal. Detectives testified that his cousin, Joe Rodhams, was killed at a Reigns high school football game back in 2018, and Foolio had mentioned Adams by name in his music, disrespecting him. Murphy told police he did not appreciate his cousin being disrespected in Foolio's songs. So, this wasn't just gang business for Rashad Murphy. This was personal. The judge denied Murphy bond based in part on his gang ties, and the state announced they were pursuing the death penalty. But AC's name didn't stop coming up there. During the trial of Alicia Andrews in October and November 2025, Detective Richard Neer took the stand and specifically described Young Gene Ace as a central figure in the ATK crew. He told the court that law enforcement monitors AC's social media, his videos, his lyrics, and his movements to track gang alliances and activity. He said, and this is direct testimony, based on the investigation, everybody seems to follow him. Whereas there's usually a bunch of people. He has the most followers on social media, on his accounts, and he gets the most views on his videos on YouTube. Law enforcement is literally using Yunjin Ace as a reference point to map out the entire ATK network. And then there was another bombshell in the Andrews trial. A detective testified that Yoon Jin-ae sent a meme to one of the suspects believed to be around the time of the killing. That testimony was entered into the record. A meme sent from Ace's account to one of the people convicted of Foolio's murder around the time of the murder. That's not a charge. That's not an arrest. But that is the kind of detail that makes investigators and prosecutors look twice. Fast forward to April 22nd, 2026. The main trial for Isaiah Chance, Shaw Gathite, Rashad Murphy, and Dave Murphy begins in Tampa. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. And on day one, opening, arguments. They played Yoon Jin-ae's music for the jury. They played Game Over, a track Ace released just 5 days after Foolio's murder. Prosecutors argued the lyrics directly reference a killing and are evidence of the motive behind the gang war. They used the song to lay out the entire rivalry between ATK 120 and 6 Block for the jury. Think about that. A Young Ace diss track was played in a Tampa courtroom as prosecution evidence in a first-degree murder trial. That's how deep this thing went. Prosecutors also presented a photo from Shaw Gathite's phone taken the day after Fio's murder, showing a bottle of Don Julio tequila, a deliberate reference to the man they had just killed. A taunt. The jury saw surveillance footage. They heard cell tower data. They watched Dave Murphy act out a shooting in an interrogation room without knowing the cameras were still rolling. They listened to Rashad Murphy's social media celebrations after the murder. And through all of it, the connection back to ATK and by extension back to Yoon Jin-ae was a thread that ran through the entire prosecution's case. On May 8, 2026, after 8 hours of deliberation, the jury came back with its verdict. Isaiah Chance, guilty, first-degree murder. Shawn Gathite, guilty, first-degree murder. Rashad Murphy, guilty, first-degree murder. Dave Murphy, guilty, first-degree murder. All four unanimous on first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. All four are now facing either life in prison or the death penalty because first-degree murder is a capital felony in Florida. The penalty phase began immediately after. As for Alicia Andrews, she had been tried separately in October 2025 and was convicted of manslaughter for her role as a lookout. She faces up to 15 years. Her sentencing has been delayed due to ongoing legal battles over whether the judge in her case was biased. That's still being sorted out in the courts. Now, here's the part everybody really wants to know. With all of this, the anonymous killer on video, the testimony in court, the connections to ATK, why hasn't Ace been charged? Let's break it down because it's more complicated than people think. Going back to April 15th, 2024, 2 months before Fio was killed, Young Ace was actually arrested. He was pulled over in Jacksonville Beach, and police found 7 loaded firearms in the car. He was charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. 6 people were in the car, which was a rental vehicle. But on July 3rd, 2024, just days after Fio's murder, those charges were dropped. Prosecutors said they lacked sufficient evidence to tie the gun specifically to Ace. They ran etruses on the firearms, found no connection to him. They took his DNA and tested it against the guns. Not enough DNA to process. His phone was recovered, but a search warrant wasn't even sought for the contents. The charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. But here's the thing, dropping those charges didn't mean law enforcement was done with him. Not even close. When reporters asked Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters about Young Jin-ae at a press conference following Fio's death, he was very careful with his words, but also very deliberate. He said, "Young Ace has long been known in Jacksonville. We are consistently monitoring those groups. We have people that are always watching them." He said there was no active investigation into Ace at that moment. But then he added he can't move around in Jacksonville without us knowing about it. That's not an innocent man, sheriff talking. That's a man under constant surveillance. And then when the Fio trial started heating up, the Alicia Andrews trial in late 2025 and the main trial in April 2026, detectives confirmed in open court that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has an acknowledged ongoing investigation into Young Jin-ae's possible involvement in Fio's murder. That investigation has never been officially closed. The masked man's video claimed Ace put up $10,000 on Foolio's head. A detective testified Ace sent a meme to one of the convicted killers around the time of the killing. His gang, ATK, was central to the entire prosecution's narrative. His diss track was played as evidence, and law enforcement has openly said they never stopped watching him. But here's the reality of the legal system. Knowing something and being able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law are two completely different things. The bar for a conviction in a capital murder case is about as high as it gets, and prosecutors are not going to move on Yoon Jin-ace until they have something ironclad, because if they move too early and it doesn't stick, he walks free and can never be charged again. That's a position law enforcement appears to be in right now. They got the trigger man. They got the lookout. Now the question is whether they can build a case that goes all the way to the top. Here's something that makes all of this even more tragic. Foolio wasn't naive about what was coming. He knew the danger he was in. He had already survived multiple attempts on his life. In July 2023, he was shot in Houston, Texas. In October 2023, less than a year before his death, he was shot in the foot while driving in Jacksonville. Shaw Gathite, one of the men who would go on to kill him, had already been linked to that October 2023 shooting on Foolio as well. In April 2024, just 2 months before he died, Foolio posted on Instagram and commented on what he called the tragic multiple attempts on my life. He knew people were coming for him. He said it publicly. And Yoon Jin-ace of all people claimed in his Instagram live after Foolio's death that he had spoken to Foolio and warned him to lay low. Whether that conversation actually happened, we can't confirm. But what's not in dispute is this. Foolio kept moving. He kept posting. He kept living publicly in a world where public movement could get you killed. When he posted those birthday flyers on June 14th, 9 days before his murder, he was essentially announcing his location, his itinerary, and his schedule to 1 million followers, including people who wanted him dead. And prosecutors made very clear that those posts are exactly what triggered the final planning stages of his murder. His killer saw those flyers and went to work. It's one of the most brutal ironies of the situation. Social media that he used to build his career and connect with fans was weaponized to end his life. Foolio left behind music that genuinely resonated with people who understood where he came from. His albums, Life of Me in 2022, Final Destination in 2023, and Resurrection in 2024 all came out before he was gone. He was productive, he was building, and he died in a hotel parking lot on his own birthday. 4 men are now looking at the death penalty for what they did that night. A 5th is convicted of manslaughter. The investigation into who gave the order is still open. For Foolio's family, there's a version of justice that has been delivered, but the full picture, who planned it, who funded it, who gave the final word, that chapter may not be written yet. One thing that is certain, this Jacksonville gang war has been one of the most documented, most deadly, most musically intertwined feuds in recent hip-hop history. And it didn't end with Foolio's death. It just moved into a courtroom. We'll keep watching this situation. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next update when it comes. Because with an active investigation still ongoing in a penalty phase that could result in death sentences for 4 men, this story is far from over. Rip Foolio.